On Christmas Day, my daughter yelled, "You're a pathetic egoist," and splashed imported red wine in my face with all her might. I silently wiped myself with a linen napkin, stood up from the mahogany table, and dialed a number. "Phase 1 complete," I said calmly into the phone. The voice on the other end replied. Then the truly interesting part begins. An hour later, my daughter was screaming in a state of panic. The notification appeared on my bespoke smartphone. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments below. At precisely 7:30 a.m., transfer complete. $48,000 to Diana Hayes. I stared at the screen in the private dining room of the premier rooftop restaurant, the Apex Grill, calculating that it brought the year's total to $132,000. My daughter, Diana, had become exorbitantly expensive. I had arrived early, requesting this specific corner room overlooking the harbor. Privacy was paramount for the intricate event I had meticulously orchestrated. Julian Hart, my attorney and a sharp former student from my Harvard law teaching days, sat across from me, reviewing his menu with the focus of a litigator. Eleanor Vance, my closest friend and the owner of the prestigious Vance Modern Art Gallery, studied the wine list with her characteristic, unshakable concentration. "They are late, Silas," Eleanor observed at 8:10. "They are perpetually late," I said, keeping my tone deliberately light. Beneath the casual sadness, a cold, hard resolve pressed against my ribs. It wasn't for the money. I possessed more than enough. It was for what my daughter had fundamentally allowed herself to become. Diana and my son-in-law, Marcus Hayes, swept in at 8:20 without so much as a murmured apology. Marcus's Italian suit, impeccably tailored, cost more than most people's annual tuition fees, and he wore it like heavy, polished armor. Diana offered a fleeting kiss on my cheek, her new, sharp perfume unfamiliar and overpowering. "Traffic was absolutely impossible getting over the bridge," she claimed, though we both knew that in a chauffeur-driven sedan, traffic merely meant delay, not impossibility. Marcus ordered immediately, barely glancing at the menu. "I'll have the imported Wagyu ribeye, the 20-ounce cut. $350. He did not look at the price. Julian caught my eye. We had discussed this exact moment. Marcus's ordering habits, I had noted, were a profound revelation of character, specifically the absolute absence of it. "So, Silas," Marcus began after the server retreated. He adopted a tone of practiced concern. "Diana mentioned you've been giving some serious thought to restructuring your estate plan." I had mentioned no such thing. I sipped my water slowly. "Estate planning is always judicious at my age, Marcus. One must plan for all eventualities." "Exactly." Marcus leaned forward, his expensive cufflinks catching the low light. "And you know what is even more judicious? Aggressive asset management, strategic transfers, maximum tax efficiency." Diana gently touched his forearm, a subtle cue I had seen them use before, a coordinated, practiced gesture. They had rehearsed this entire scene. "The main estate on Harborview Drive," Marcus continued, his voice dropping slightly as if sharing a secret. "It's what, 8,000 square feet? 6 bedrooms? That is an extravagant amount of space for one person to manage." "It suits me perfectly," I replied, my expression unreadable. "But the property taxes alone," he stopped himself abruptly, then recalibrated his approach. "Look, we're simply concerned. At your stage, you should simplify. Maybe transfer ownership now. Avoid the unnecessary complications later." I smiled at him, the gentle, distant smile one reserves for a particularly transparent child caught in a silly lie. "I appreciate your immense concern, Marcus. I assure you, I contemplate the future quite often, more often than you might imagine." His jaw tightened. I had given him absolutely nothing. The main course arrived. Marcus attacked his rare ribeye with an almost primitive enthusiasm reserved exclusively for things he had not, and would likely never, earn. Conversation meandered through carefully curated, safe topics. Eleanor's latest successful exhibition, Julian's upcoming sailing trip, the current volatility of the winter stock market. Every few minutes, like a persistent, circling predator, Marcus would veer the conversation back to money, specifically commercial real estate values, investment portfolio structuring, and the crushing burden of maintaining large legacy properties. I recounted a story about a revered collector I had known decades ago, a man who had sold his entire collection at 72 and spent his final decade simply traveling the world. He died in Florence, I concluded, broke and perfectly happy, surrounded by beauty. Marcus's face achieved a truly remarkable shade of deep crimson. That is utterly irresponsible, he sputtered, utterly unable to comprehend the concept. He had a family. He should have provided. He seemed to think otherwise. I finished, spearing a small oyster from my plate. He felt his family had grown too accustomed to their own money. As it should be, the silence that followed was heavy, tangible. Diana stared fixedly at her plate. Marcus's knuckles whitened around the handle of his expensive silverware. "Let me be direct, Silas," Marcus said finally, his voice dangerously low, his attempt at decorum completely shattered. "That house is far too large for you to occupy alone. You must transfer the title to us. The capital gains benefits alone make it the only logical choice." "The house suits me perfectly," I repeated, maintaining my cool, neutral tone. "But I will certainly consider your very persuasive advice." Julian attempted a well-timed rescue. "Silas, didn't you mention successfully acquiring that rare Spanish coin recently? The one from the Seville Mint?" "Yes, an exceedingly rare 8 escudo piece from the 1680s, I confirmed. Quite a monumental find." "Coins," Marcus muttered, his lip curling in palpable disdain. "Right. Meanwhile, real assets, like multi-million-dollar property, are sitting idle. This Chilean sea base is magnificent, Silas," Eleanor interrupted, her voice bright with exaggerated, forced cheer. "You always know the very best places in the city." "Well," Marcus interjected, his smile thin and sharp as fractured glass. "Some of us, of course, can afford the best. Others are still figuring things out." The utterly disrespectful comment hung in the air like acrid, burnt smoke. I thought of Diana's frantic phone call last month. Her voice had been sickeningly honeyed, urgent. "Dad, this business opportunity is so incredibly time-sensitive. I just need $48,000 immediately to secure the contract and my percentage." A foolish, lingering part of me, the part that remembered her at age 7, meticulously making me lopsided Father's Day cards, still desperately wanted to believe her. I remembered Marcus's wedding toast 8 years ago, how I had covertly paid the staggering $85,000 bill for that lavish ceremony. To my generous father-in-law, Silas, who proves that family always takes care of family. Everyone had applauded. I had felt an overwhelming sense of pride then. Now, I felt only the chilling, painful clarity of recognition. Dessert arrived, a delicate lavender creme brulee for most of us. Another gratuitously expensive flourish for Marcus, who barely touched it. He was too intensely focused on watching me, waiting for any sign of weakness, any slip of control. I thought of Diana at 23, her admission letter to Columbia Business School clutched in her hand. How I had stood right here in my study, looking at my coveted early Renaissance triptych, the one I had spent years authenticating my self-worth, $650,000. The gallery owner's surprised reaction when I called him was still vivid. "Silas, you've had this masterpiece for 25 years. My daughter's future is worth more than any painting," I had told him simply. I had never mentioned the enormous financial sacrifice to Diana. What loving father would hold such a thing over his child? Now, Diana sat directly across from me, touching Marcus's arm again, a gesture of either subtle encouragement or nervous restraint. I truly could not discern which. The private dining room felt suddenly claustrophobic, the walls pressing in. Filtered voices from other diners drifted through the doorway. Normal people having normal, joyous dinners. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my wine, perfectly composed. Marcus's face had progressed from angry red to a startling, dangerous crimson. His breathing quickened. Diana's eyes darted frantically between us, rapidly calculating the odds. The storm was unequivocally coming. I could feel it building like the intense pressure that precedes thunder. I set down my crystal glass. I smiled faintly. Marcus's control snapped like an old, frayed rope. "We need the money now," he shouted, the volume shocking. "You keep delaying, but our timeline is running out." I kept my voice level almost clinical. "I have already transferred $132,000 to you this year, Marcus. Is that truly insufficient? That's merely drops in the ocean for a man like you." He slammed his large palm down on the table, rattling all the expensive silverware. "You live in a $5 million estate, and we are barely scraping by." Marcus Dash, Diana started, but he was far beyond listening to her. "No, Diana. He needs to hear this. We have been patient. We have been incredibly respectful. But patience absolutely has its limits." I said absolutely nothing. Sometimes, silence achieves what no carefully chosen words ever can. Diana's hand trembled visibly as she lifted her wine glass. Chateau Leoville Barton, 97 vintage, $400 a bottle. She had barely touched it the entire evening. Now, she stood up abruptly, and I recognized the terrifying look in her eyes, something rehearsed, something planned, finally breaking free into genuine, unbridled rage. "Dad," she said, her voice shaking violently, "you really are a pathetic egoist." The words hit harder than I had expected, not because they held any truth, but because they came from her mouth, aimed directly at me. "You never once thought about me. Never. Always your rare coins, your outdated triptychs, your abstract art collections. And me? What am I? Nothing to you." The wine flew. Deep red spread instantly across the immaculate white Brooks Brothers cotton of my shirt, across my face, dripping steadily onto the pristine linen tablecloth. $400 bottle, $200 shirt. The humiliation was, quite literally, priceless. The room froze solid. Eleanor let out a small, sharp gasp. Julian half stood, his chair scraping back. Other diners stared through the doorway, mesmerized. Diana herself seemed momentarily shocked by the destructive thing she had just done. I took the linen napkin, slowly dabbed the wine from my face, and folded it precisely the precise, measured way I had been taught at my preparatory school 70 years ago. I pushed my chair back without any hurry whatsoever. Every single movement was deliberate, controlled, my dignity in the chilling silence more devastating than any retaliatory response I could have possibly crafted. I walked slowly toward the exit. No one spoke a word. In the corridor, safely away from any witnesses, I pulled out my phone and speed-dialed Julian's number. He answered immediately. I knew he had left the table 30 seconds after me. "Phase 1 complete," I said quietly. Then the interesting part begins. Julian's voice carried a professional, cool satisfaction. "Your study, 30 minutes. Perfect." I returned to the dining room. Diana and Marcus were frantically gathering their things, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Diana clutched her expensive purse like a fragile shield. "Dad," I dashed. She could not finish the sentence. "Sorry, I didn't mean dash." Marcus pulled on his coat, defiant despite the palpable humiliation. "Maybe now you will finally understand, old man. We are absolutely serious." They fled the room without a single backward glance. The dining room felt significantly larger in their absence. Eleanor approached, her face creased with genuine concern. "Silas, that was truly horrible. Are you truly all right?" I managed a slight, thin smile. "Eleanor, everything is perfectly fine. Trust me." Julian appeared at my elbow. "The show," he murmured softly, "has just begun." 20 minutes later, I sat in my expansive, leather-scented study at 47 Harborview Drive. The wine-stained shirt was already replaced with a fresh, custom-made Egyptian cotton button-down. 2 glasses of Macallan 50-year scotch were poured, their color a deep, satisfying amber. Julian settled into the tufted leather armchair directly across from my large, antique mahogany desk. I retrieved the manila folder I had kept securely locked in the reinforced bottom drawer for 2 nerve-wracking weeks. Agnes Whitmore mentioned seeing a visibly nervous man aggressively demanding cash at their apartment complex. Julian said, reviewing his notes calmly. That, I confirmed, taking a slow sip of the smoky scotch, is precisely when I hired the detective. The memory was sharp and unsettling. Early December, Agnes, my meticulous, gray-haired neighbor, had leaned over the custom wrought iron fence between our properties, her voice casual yet laced with profound concern. Silas, I truly hope I'm not overstepping, but I witnessed quite a scene at your daughter's residence last week. A man, very agitated, shouting loudly about a massive sum of money owed. I had thanked her, maintained a perfectly neutral expression, gone inside, and immediately made the call. The detective's comprehensive report had arrived exactly 2 weeks ago, its contents a brutal confirmation of my deepest fears. Marcus Hayes, $310,000 in complex debts, business fraud, extensive unpaid loans, and, most damningly, my professional name shamelessly forged on numerous financial documents I had never once seen. Diana Hayes, another $310,000 in credit card debt, accumulated through luxury purchases and the desperate maintenance of a wholly unsustainable lifestyle. Nearly two-thirds of $1 million in financial distress between them, and their only solution was to aggressively demand more from me. Tonight was the necessary provocation, Julian stated, closing the folder and studying my face. Witnesses saw their true, reprehensible nature. The wine incident, I said, the memory still stinging. Diana's cruel, public accusation, her calling me a pathetic egoist in front of trusted friends. The words still inflicted pain, but not for the reason Diana would have ever imagined. I thought of her at 16, accidentally spilling bright orange juice on my favorite silk tie and bursting into uncontrollable tears. "It's just a tie, sweetheart," I had told her, laughing softly. I thought of lending her the money for her extravagant senior prom dress, for her first apartment security deposit, walking her down the long aisle at age 35. The transformation had been gradual, insidious. I had deliberately ignored the escalating signs because, as a father, I had desperately wanted to. "So," Julian asked, adjusting his posture, "we activate the real plan now." I took a deep, deliberate sip of the Macallan. It burned pleasantly, smoothly, carrying the taste of ancient peat and resolution. Outside the tall, magnificent windows of the study, the December cold caused the heavy glass panes to contract with small, creaking sounds. My study smelled richly of old, preserved leather and rare books, a scent familiar and wonderfully solid. "Tomorrow is Christmas Day," I reminded him, my voice calm. "They will be panicking, anxiously waiting for my immediate response. Let them sweat." I smiled across the desk at Julian, my former student who had matured into my sharpest, strongest legal ally. December 26th, we file the new estate documents. And the overwhelming evidence of fraud? That comes later. First, let them incorrectly believe they have temporarily won through sheer intimidation. Let Marcus absolutely believe his ridiculous tantrum worked. Julian raised his large, square glass. "Marcus believes he is playing chess," I said, meeting the toast with a gentle clink. "He doesn't yet realize, Julian, that I have already won." The scotch tasted profoundly like victory. Or perhaps just like a very expensive whiskey consumed by a 68-year-old man who had finally accepted the difficult truth of what his daughter had regrettably become. Either way, it satisfied a deep professional need. Julian's solid, gold-nibbed fountain pen moved efficiently across his legal pad, systematically categorizing the evidence with practiced precision. Financial fraud, usable identity misrepresentation, criminal debt timeline, established motive. We had been in my study for exactly 40 minutes. The detective's report was spread across my desk like definitive autopsy findings. Outside, the severe December cold caused the massive window panes to contract and shift. Inside, the soothing warmth from the crackling fireplace and the controlled rage from discovered betrayal kept the room surprisingly comfortable. Agnes Whitmore's casual comment in early December. Julian said, not looking up from his dense notes. That is precisely when you knew for certain. I thought back to that unsettling afternoon. I had been raking the perpetually falling leaves, a pointless, meditative task. My neighbor, Agnes, had leaned over our meticulously maintained shared fence. Gray-haired, kind-faced, the exact sort of neighbor who notices and remembers everything. Silas, I sincerely hope this isn't overstepping. Her voice had carried an undercurrent of genuine worry. Last week, I saw quite a major disturbance at your daughter's apartment building. A man, very agitated, shouting at the top of his lungs about money desperately owed. I had thanked her, keeping my tone perfectly casual, gone inside, and stood motionless in my kitchen for a long 10 minutes, my morning coffee growing rapidly cold. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that I absolutely needed to know the objective truth. That's when I needed undeniable confirmation. I told Julian now. I had strongly suspected it since summer, when their requests suddenly became hostile and aggressive. But suspicion is never, ever evidence. And you hire Morgan Investigations, licensed, bonded, everything legally above board, Julian concluded. It took him 3 weeks of rigorous work to compile this comprehensive file. I gestured toward the thick folder. Thomas Morgan had been extraordinarily thorough. Bank statements, convoluted business filings, creditor correspondence, detailed surveillance photographs, the entire painful anatomy of betrayal documented meticulously. Julian picked up a document. In partnership with renowned Harvard professor Silas Bradley, he read aloud. Dated March 2024. He looked at me, a question hanging unspoken in the air. You never agreed to this? Never, I confirmed. I never even saw it until 2 weeks ago. That, Julian, is flagrant fraudulent misrepresentation. Connecticut General Statutes, Section 52, 564, he murmured, making a rapid note. How many such documents exist? The detective found 3 separate, distinct instances. That establishes a clear criminal pattern, not an isolated mistake. The evidence painted a devastatingly clear picture. Marcus Hayes had begun accumulating severe, catastrophic debt in early 2023. A failed, over-leveraged tech startup, followed by unauthorized investment consulting. By mid-2023, his written promises to creditors openly referenced a wealthy father-in-law and an anticipated property transfer. Diana's parallel spending spree had spiraled out of control. High-end designer clothes, extravagant travel, the enormous Stanford apartment that cost far more than she could remotely afford. Julian held up a formal letter. This is from a private, high-risk lender named Mr. Henderson. Marcus explicitly promised a substantial, 7-figure property transfer from father-in-law, anticipated Q1 2025. He put in writing. I managed a bitter, humorless laugh. He was that utterly confident. He believed tonight's humiliating dinner would seal the deal. Pressure me publicly. Make a calculated scene if I refused. Force my hand either way. Instead, Julian summarized, he gave us undeniable witnesses to his true character. Chess, not checkers, Julian, I repeated. I pulled out my second folder, thinner than the detective's report, but equally damning. My own meticulous documentation of the previous year's financial gifts, bank transfers, each transfer accompanied by Diana's written requests, text messages, and emails demonstrating the relentlessly escalating demands and transparently manufactured urgencies. Dad, this business opportunity is so incredibly time-sensitive. I need $48K to secure the contract. Dad, emergency. The apartment security deposit is due Friday. Can you possibly help with $16K? Dad, Marcus's new investment requires immediate, time-sensitive capital. Just $22K would make all the difference right now. $132,000 dispensed over precisely 12 months. Each request sweeter and more manipulative than the last. Each deadline more urgently invented. Each flimsy excuse more elaborately constructed. When exactly did you transition from suspicion to certainty? Julian asked. I thought about that precise moment. June, maybe. Diana called. Uncharacteristically sweet. Needed $16,000 by Friday. Absolutely refused to explain why. Just kept repeating the word opportunity. Then August. Marcus at a family barbecue, casually asking about my estate strategy. September. Diana crying on the phone about a sudden, unexpected expense. October. I continued. Marcus sent me a lengthy article about large property transfers with a pointed, handwritten note. Thought you'd find this interesting, Professor. The exploitative pattern had been clearly visible. I had simply chosen to ignore it because I desperately wanted to believe in her. November, I finished feeling the chill again. Diana's voice became cold, almost clinical, when I hesitated on yet another request. That's when I finally understood. They had stopped viewing me as family. I had become nothing more than a profitable asset, scheduled to be liquidated. Julian flipped through the detective's surveillance photographs. Marcus at business meetings, gesturing expansively with fake confidence. Diana shopping tirelessly on Fifth Avenue. Bag from high-end boutiques she simply could not afford. The two of them arguing fiercely in their apartment complex parking lot. Visible, palpable stress in their very postures. I remember Diana's wedding 8 years ago, walking her down the aisle, her hand light and trusting on my arm. Marcus's eloquent, polished toast at the crowded reception. To family who supports family. Everyone had applauded thunderously. I had felt genuine, selfless happiness then. Now, that same man was captured in these devastating photographs, and my daughter had thrown red wine directly into my face. They believe they won tonight, I said quietly, stating a fact. Julian looked up, comprehension dawning in his eyes. What? Marcus and Diana. Right now, they're back at their apartment, probably arguing fiercely about the best follow-up tactics. But Marcus is absolutely convinced the intimidation successfully worked. He will tell Diana that old men cannot handle direct confrontation, that I will surely call tomorrow capitulating. Will you? Julian challenged, a slight smirk playing on his lips. I smiled back, a genuine, cold smile. What do you think, Julian? Julian smiled broadly. I think, Silas, that they have catastrophically misread the entire situation. We reviewed the dense fraud evidence one last time. Marcus's fundamental, arrogant error had been putting the false claims in permanent writing. His hubris had made him sloppy, overconfident. He had incorrectly assumed I was naive, that I would never investigate, and that I could be easily pressured through shock tactics. He had been fundamentally wrong on every single count. Your firm can handle the swift estate revision. I asked, looking at Julian Hart, law associate's reputation for probate excellence. Hart & Associates specializes in precisely this type of complex probate law, Julian confirmed. We can have the new, notarized documents prepared and finalized by tomorrow afternoon. And the fraud evidence. I have excellent connections at the State Department of Banking and the Attorney General's office. Once we have your estate legally secured, we can submit a formal, comprehensive complaint. The evidence is solid and voluminous. They will initiate a formal investigation immediately. I closed the detective's folder firmly, locking it back in my reinforced desk drawer. The small, antique key turned with a satisfying, resolute click. Julian meticulously gathered his notes. So, we execute the plan, starting when? I glanced at the heavy brass calendar on my desk. December 23rd, nearly midnight now. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. They will be unbearably anxious, waiting all day for my response. Let them wait. Day after Christmas, I declared. December 26th, we file the new, ironclad will. And then, Julian, then we sit back and watch their entire world collapse, piece by methodical piece. Julian raised his Scotch glass, still half full, to justice. I touched my glass to his. To consequences. The Scotch tasted better than it had any right to. Get some rest, Julian, I said, finally setting down my empty glass. The real, interesting work starts in exactly 2 days. Christmas morning arrived with a chilling, unexpected peace. I woke at 7 naturally, without the jolt of an alarm. Downstairs, the vast, modern kitchen was filled with the soft, gray light of a winter day. I meticulously ground expensive coffee beans, a rich, French roast purchased from the small, bespoke shop on Greenwich Avenue and measured the purified water precisely. For minutes in the French press. The simple, familiar ritual grounded me. My phone displayed a single text message received at 6:30 a.m. Diana, Dad, please. I'm so terribly sorry about last night. Can we please talk today? I read it twice, noted the time, and deleted the notification without response. I then poured my coffee. The house felt expansively large in its silence. No forced conversation, no required cheer, no unbearable pretense, just me, the quiet, and the first genuinely peaceful Christmas morning I had experienced in many, many years. Mid-morning, Julian called. Merry Christmas, Silas. The documents are fully prepared. Everything exactly as you specified. Should I bring them by the house today? Merry Christmas, Julian. No, tomorrow is perfectly fine, I replied. Let's meet at your firm's office at 10 a.m. Keep it professional, completely controlled. A formal signing, Julian confirmed. Multiple witnesses make it absolutely unimpeachable. Exactly. At 2 p.m., Diana sent a substantially longer message. Dad, I'm truly sorry. I was extremely stressed. I did not mean those terrible things I said. Can we please talk? Call me. I read it 3 times. I didn't mean those things. But she absolutely did. That was the most profound source of the pain. Not the hurled wine, not the cruel words, but the cold, painful calculation behind the entire display. Marcus had coached her, yes, but she had ultimately chosen to participate. She had chosen to view me as a massive obstacle to be removed, not a loving father. I did not respond. At 4 p.m., Marcus called. I declined the call. Another call came immediately, then a third, equally frantic. After the 4th attempt, I blocked his number entirely. His desperation was showing, raw and ugly. Good. Evening arrived with long, deep shadows. I retreated to my study, pulling down the heavy, leather-bound photo albums from the top shelf. Physical memories, not fleeting digital ghosts, that I had meticulously maintained since Diana was born. Diana at 5, finger painting, her small hands completely covered in bright blue pigment. Diana at 13, standing beside me at the Metropolitan Museum, pointing with genuine awe at a Caravaggio masterpiece. Diana at 22, graduating from Columbia Business School, her cap slightly crooked, her smile brilliant and promising. I turned the pages slowly, allowing myself to feel the profound, aching loss before steeling my resolve once more. From my filing cabinet, I retrieved a completely different set of documents. Financial records spanning 15 years. Not the detective's cold evidence of fraud, but my own documented evidence of sacrificial love. A Sotheby's auction receipt dated June 2009. Early Renaissance triptych, $650,000. My small, handwritten note in the margin, for Diana's education. I remembered standing here in this study that summer, looking at the painting I had owned and cherished for 25 years. Purchased at a modest estate sale in 1984 for $90,000, later authenticated as early Renaissance school. It had appreciated beautifully. Eleanor Vance had come to evaluate it then younger, her face etched with shock. Silas, are you truly certain about this piece? You adore it. I love my daughter more, I had simply told her. I had signed the sale papers that same afternoon. I had never once mentioned the immense sacrifice to Diana. I had merely said I had managed to save enough money for her full tuition. The sacrifice had been entirely mine to make, mine to keep silently. Until now, when the truth mattered most. Other documents told similar stories. Bank transfer confirmation, March 2015. $35,000 to Diana Bradley. Memo line, apartment down payment. Wedding venue invoice, September 2017. $85,000, paid in full. Car title transfer, December 2018. Lexus ES sedan, $42,000. I spread them across my antique desk, just as Julian had spread the fraud evidence. But these documents showed a profound, unconditional love, meticulous care, a father generously providing for his daughter. Over $280,000 given freely over 15 years, never mentioned, never once held over her head. And in return, hurled wine, cruel public accusations, and cold, calculated manipulation. The next morning, December 26th, I dressed with extreme care. A crisp navy suit, my cherished Harvard law tie, a subtle, constant reminder of who I was and what I had professionally accomplished. My leather portfolio contained my current will, soon to be completely superseded. Hart and Associates occupied a luxurious suite on Greenwich Avenue, the second floor, with rich mahogany furniture and tall, impressive windows overlooking the town. Julian's assistant showed me to the large conference room, where Julian waited with two young paralegals and a professional notary public. Mr. Bradley, Julian stood, gesturing to the composed woman beside him. This is Ms. Patricia Chun, our most trusted notary. Mr. Bradley, pleased to meet you, Patricia said, 50-ish, professional, and efficient. Julian presented the document, professionally bound, 27 pages, formally titled, Last Will and Testament of Silas Bradley. I have structured this document to withstand any potential challenge. Silas, Julian said as I took my seat. Connecticut law is very clear. The testator has the absolute, undeniable right to distribute his estate as he chooses. I read carefully. The language was precise, cold, and utterly unambiguous. My entire estate, valued at approximately $18 million including the Greenwich estate, the extensive investment portfolio, the abstract art collection, and the rare coin collection would immediately establish the Bradley Foundation for Art History and Law Student Scholarships. Diana would receive $1, a symbolic acknowledgement of her legal existence. Marcus would receive absolutely nothing. The foundation, I asked, looking up, should we formally establish it now or posthumously? Either way, Julian advised, I strongly recommend establishing it during your lifetime. It clearly shows active intent. It becomes much harder to claim undue influence or diminished capacity later. I nodded, continuing to read. The will addressed every conceivable legal challenge. Undue influence clauses, detailed capacity documentation, multiple impartial witnesses, an explicit statement of sound mind and deliberate intent. This is completely ironclad. I asked, looking Julian directly in the eye. As ironclad as Connecticut probate law possibly allows, he confirmed. They could certainly contest, but they would unequivocally lose. Patricia Chun spoke, her voice formal and measured. Mr. Bradley, I must confirm, you understand this document revokes all prior wills and codicils? I do, and you are executing this will of your own free will, without any form of coercion or duress. I allowed myself a slight, thin smile. Completely free will, Ms. Chun. Perhaps the freest, most purposeful decision I have made in many years. I signed with my Mont Blanc fountain pen the one Harvard Law had presented to me upon my formal retirement. A firm, steady signature on each required page, initials in the margins. The two paralegals signed as impartial witnesses. Patricia applied her official notary seal with a satisfying metallic click. Signed, witnessed, and notarized, Patricia confirmed, handed me the document. This is now your valid last will and testament. I held the thick document for a moment, feeling its profound weight. My previous will, signed in 2010 when Diana was 31, had left everything to her simple, trusting, and assuming that love equaled loyalty. I had painfully learned better. Julian handed me a copy of another document, a formal letter on Hart and Associates letterhead. The notification letters go out today, Silas. Certified mail. They will receive them precisely on December 28th. I read the crucial opening paragraph. Dear Mrs. Hayes, we represent Mr. Silas Bradley. This letter serves as formal notification that Mr. Bradley has executed a new last will and testament dated December 26, 2024. The estate, valued at approximately $18 million, will be distributed to the Bradley Foundation for Art History and Law Student Scholarships. Diana Morrison to receive $1 symbolic bequest. Marcus Hayes, no provision. I folded the letter neatly, placing it carefully in my portfolio. 2 days. They had 2 days of false hope before the floor utterly dropped out from beneath them. Julian poured coffee from the silver pot. What do you truly think they will do when they read it, Silas? I stood up, walking slowly to the tall window. Below, Greenwich Avenue showed post-Christmas shoppers frantically returning unwanted gifts. Normal life was continuing, completely unaware of the small, devastating drama unfolding high above them. Marcus will rage. Diana will panic, I predicted. Then, they will both come begging to my house. I turned back to Julian, and I will not answer the door. After that, Julian pressed. After that, I said, a look of profound resolution settling on my face. Then the real, interesting consequences begin. On December 28th, the mail carrier delivered the certified letter to Diana and Marcus's apartment. I had meticulously orchestrated this. Diana signed for the heavy envelope from Hart and Associates. The letter contained the shocking notification. I, Silas Bradley, had executed a new last will and testament. My entire $18 million estate was left to the Bradley Foundation. Diana received a $1 symbolic bequest. Marcus received nothing. I was in my study when my phone instantly began ringing. Diana called 15 times in the next hour. I declined every attempt. I listened to the voicemails later. The progression of her desperation, from confusion to frantic, tearful panic, was exactly as predicted. Dad, please. I just got this letter. There must be some mistake. Daddy, I am begging you. Just talk to me. Through an hour, my daughter was screaming in a state of sheer panic. Marcus arrived home at noon. He read the letter, crumpled it, smoothed it out, and read it again. Their fight lasted 20 brutal minutes, loud enough for neighbors to complain. Diana accused Marcus of pushing too hard. Marcus raged that Diana's wine-throwing incident was the catalyst for disaster. Their partnership fractured instantly. Marcus then tried calling me 3 times, revealing his desperation, before I permanently blocked his number. At 3 p.m., Marcus received a critical call from Mr. Henderson, the high-risk private lender. I had ensured this call occurred. Henderson demanded the immediate return of $150,000 by January 15th, warning that he knew about Professor Bradley's situation. Marcus realized this was a coordinated attack, not a passive response. They came to my house at 6 p.m. I watched from my upstairs study window. They knew I was home. Diana rang the bell frantically. Marcus pounded on the heavy oak door. Dad, please. We need to talk. Silas, this is absolutely ridiculous. We are family. I stood at the top of my grand staircase, hearing every word, but remained impassive. Across the street, Agnes Whitmore watched the entire spectacle. After a humiliating 20 minutes of public pleading and demanding, they finally left. I retreated to my desk, poured the Macallan, and opened the drawer holding my $3.1 million rare coin collection, a treasure Diana never knew existed. I ran my finger over the rare 8 Escudo piece, reflecting on their public shame. My phone showed a new text from Julian, second phase documents ready to file. Monday, Jan 2nd. Financial regulation complaint against Marcus fully prepared. I texted back a single word, proceed. The final stage of consequences started January 2nd. I looked at my reflection, a determined man who had shown them that 70 years of experience was more formidable than their ruthless greed. On January 2nd, the envelope from the Connecticut Department of Banking and Financial Regulation arrived, a formal notice of investigation. Marcus Hayes was under investigation for operating as an unlicensed financial advisor. Penalties included fines and criminal prosecution. Marcus instantly called Diana, panicking. Diana spent January 5th calling family. Aunt Sarah and other contacts cut her off, citing the wine incident and my integrity. I had successfully poisoned their social well. Diana found my Wikipedia page, learning about my Harvard career and the $18 million net worth she had previously ignored. The cruel irony of my invisibility as a parent was now clear. January 8th, Eleanor Vance used her art salon to spread word that Marcus was fraudulently using my name in investment schemes. January 10th, Agnes Whitmore publicly shamed Diana at her book club, calling the wine incident financial elder abuse. The social verdict was final. Immediately, Diana's corporate clients canceled contracts. Income dropped 60%. She emailed me, desperate, "Dad, I've been reading about your career. I am so incredibly sorry. Can we just talk?" I waited 24 hours to respond, allowing the consequences to sink in. January 15th arrived with Henderson's deadline. Marcus was sued for $150,000. January 22nd, Citizens Bank filed a second lawsuit for $90,000. Their final resource, $7,000, went to a cheap attorney for a hopeless attempt to contest the will. Diana and Marcus had their final violent fight. Diana screamed that his fraud was the real cost. Marcus blamed her public humiliation of me. He grabbed his coat and disappeared, sleeping in his car. Diana found him gone. January 26th, Diana was completely isolated. Late on January 28th, she sent a final, heartfelt email. "I'm not asking for money, just forgiveness." I replied the next evening. Trust is shattered. When you understand the inherent value of humanity, not money, perhaps we will talk. February 3rd. Marcus's desperate attorney filed a motion claiming I lacked capacity due to age, requesting a psychiatric evaluation. I laughed. I told Julian I would ace it. This final, stupid attempt would lead to their ultimate embarrassment. The real work continued. January 22nd brought the second, devastating lawsuit. Citizens Bank filed for $90,000 on an unpaid credit line. Marcus frantically called attorneys from his laptop, working through desperate Google search results. Our retainer for civil litigation is $30,000. We need $25,000 to start. Sorry, we are not taking new clients right now. Finally, a solo practitioner in Norwalk, a desperate voice, too eager. "I can certainly help you. $25,000. Marcus, grasping at straws, "I have $5,000 now. Payment plan for the rest." Long pause. "Let me think about it." That night, Diana and Marcus had their absolute worst fight yet. Two massive lawsuits. Diana's voice was raw from crying. "How do we possibly get here?" "We got here because your father is utterly vindictive." Marcus paced their small living room. "Because you couldn't control yourself at one single dinner. You told me to pressure him. This was your plan. Get the house. Get the money. And now we have nothing. We'd have something if you hadn't humiliated him publicly." Marcus's face was crimson with rage. "Do you understand what you cost us?" "What I cost us?" Diana stood, shaking. "You're the one who took out loans promising my father's house. You used his name in business deals without asking. This is your fraud, Marcus." He grabbed his coat and immediately left. Diana collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably into cushions that now smelled undeniably like failure. Marcus slept in his car that freezing night. In the morning, Diana found him completely gone. January 26th. She tried calling her cousin, Sarah. They had been close once as teenagers. "Sarah, please. I just need someone to talk to Dad for me. Tell him I'm sorry." Sarah's voice was ice. "Diana, I heard what happened. Aunt Agnes told everyone at her book club. You threw wine at Uncle Silas at Christmas. It was a mistake. I was stressed." Marcus was dash. "Yes, we've all heard about Marcus, too. Diana, you made your choices." Click. Diana stared at her phone, completely and utterly isolated. Late on January 28th, alone in the apartment, Marcus asleep on the couch, their oppressive silence now permanent, Diana opened her laptop. She started typing an email to her father. "Dad, I know I was wrong." Deleted. Too simple. "Dad, please forgive me. I'm desperate." Deleted. Too overtly manipulative. "Dad, I'm your daughter. Doesn't that matter to you anymore?" Deleted. Biology is never an absolution. Finally, at 2:47 a.m., she wrote, "Dad, I know I was horrible, but I'm your daughter. Please just talk to me. I'm not asking for money, just forgiveness." She hovered over send, closed her eyes, and clicked. Then she sat staring at her phone, hoping for an immediate response. Nothing came. Morning arrived. Still nothing. By evening, She checked her email every few minutes, compulsively refreshing the screen. I had read Diana's email the night she sent it. Saw the notification on my phone at 2:53 a.m. I am a light sleeper at 68. Read it in bed, the phone screen bright in the darkness. Felt the brief, deep pain. She was my daughter. The desperation in her words was undeniably genuine. But I also remembered other words, pathetic egoist. I remembered the sensation of cold red wine dripping down my face. I remembered the calculation in her eyes at that restaurant. The cold, coordinated performance with Marcus. The entire year of escalating, entitled demands. I waited 24 hours to respond. Discipline matters most. January 29th evening. I typed carefully. Diana, I have always loved you, but trust is shattered. When you truly understand the inherent value of humanity, not money, perhaps we will talk. Send it. The response was kind, but devastatingly firm. No immediate relief. Conditions were set. Diana read it sitting at her kitchen table. Read it 3 times. Started crying uncontrollably. Marcus walked in, read it over her shoulder, and sneered. Humanity? He's playing ridiculous mind games. We fight back. Diana looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in many months, she saw with perfect clarity. She saw the pathetic manipulator. She saw the financial failure. She saw the man who had utterly destroyed her relationship with her father. But she was not ready to act on that clarity yet. February 3rd. Marcus scraped together the last $7,000 a cash advance on a new credit card at 31% interest. He hired the Norwalk attorney to formally contest my will. The strategy was desperate, predictable, and weak. Claim age-related diminished capacity. Argue I was not legally competent at 68 to make major estate decisions. The cheap attorney knew the claim was weak, but desperately needed the retainer fee. He filed a motion requesting a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. Marcus explained it to Diana as if he were a clever mastermind. This is how we win. We prove he's not mentally capable of making sound decisions. That invalidates the will. Maybe we can get a conservator appointed over the estate. Diana was uncertain. Dad seemed perfectly clear to me that night. Marcus. That's the point. We claim he's not. It's simply legal strategy. The motion was filed. Court scheduled the evaluation for February 10th. Julian called me that evening. Silas, Marcus's attorney filed a motion. They are requesting a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation, claiming you lack capacity due to advanced age. I was silent for a moment, then I genuinely laughed. Genuine, deep laughter. They think I'm senile? At 68, after 34 years teaching constitutional law at Harvard. Julian joined the laughter. It is desperate, stupidly desperate. But Silas, you will need to pass the evaluation. Pass? Julian, I will ace it. Tell Marcus's attorney I will be absolutely happy to attend. In fact, I will prepare rigorously. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, whatever they desire. This will be far more embarrassing for them than the Christmas dinner. I will arrange for a top neuropsychologist, Julian, someone whose credentials are unimpeachable. I opened my desk drawer, retrieving an old grade book from 2016, my final teaching semester. Dozens of students, all their detailed grades, paper topics, my comprehensive comments. My memory was flawless. Let's see them legally explain away this. Dr. Patricia Anderson's office occupied an immaculate professional suite near the Yale Medical School. Diplomas covered the walls. Johns Hopkins, Yale board certifications. She was 50-ish, warm, but incredibly thorough. Mr. Bradley, this will be a comprehensive cognitive assessment. Memory, reasoning, executive function, language. It usually takes about 3 full hours. I smiled at her. I understand, doctor. I am completely ready. The test began. Word lists. She read 25 complex words, then asked me to recall them immediately. I got 23. 20 minutes later, after other intensive tests, she asked again. I recited 23 words without any hesitation. That is absolutely exceptional for any age, she noted, writing rapidly. How do you maintain such sharp memory? Doctor, I spent 34 years teaching complex constitutional law and intricate art history. Hundreds of cases, thousands of paintings, dates, provenance details. Memory is a muscle, doctor. I have exercised mine diligently every single day. Spatial reasoning puzzles. I solve them quickly, efficiently. Math calculations. Faster than average for a 30-year-old. Verbal fluency test. Name as many animals as possible in 60 seconds. I named 42. Final question. Mr. Bradley, can you please tell me about your career? I delivered a 10-minute overview, specifying courses taught, book titles, exact publication dates, colleagues' names, research methodologies, no notes, no hesitation, perfect flowing recall. Dr. Anderson's professional neutrality finally cracked slightly. She was visibly impressed. February 12th. Her comprehensive report arrived. I did not see it immediately. Julian called me instead, his voice laced with amusement. Silas, Dr. Anderson's evaluation came through. You are truly going to enjoy this. He read me the conclusion. Mr. Silas Bradley, age 68, demonstrates cognitive functioning significantly above average for his age cohort. Memory, superior. Processing speed, above average. Executive function, excellent. No evidence whatsoever of dementia, mild cognitive impairment, or diminished capacity. Subject is fully competent to make all legal and financial decisions. Testamentary capacity is unquestionable. I allowed myself profound satisfaction. Sent a copy directly to Marcus's attorney, Julian. Marcus's chief lawyer called him within the hour. Mr. Hayes, I have Dr. Anderson's report. I'm afraid it is not remotely favorable to our position. Marcus's voice was desperate. What does it say? She found your father-in-law has superior cognitive functioning and unquestionable testamentary capacity. In layman's terms, Mr. Hayes, he's sharp as a razor tack. The judge will not even consider this challenge. We are finished. Can we get a second opinion? A different doctor? With what money, Mr. Hayes? And no, Dr. Anderson is Yale Medical School faculty. 25 years experience. Unimpeachable reputation. I am formally withdrawing the motion and closing your case now. Wait, my $7,000 is gone. I did the work, Mr. Hayes. The motion failed. I am sorry, but this was ill-advised from the very start. Click. Marcus stared at his phone. $7,000 wasted. Motion withdrawn. Last ammunition spent. February 15th. Julian escalated the situation. He had been meticulously preparing while we waited for the evaluation results. He filed a formal, comprehensive complaint with the Connecticut Office of the Attorney General, White Collar Crime Division. The document was thorough, a thick folder, organized with precise tabs, professional presentation. Marcus Hayes, 2023-2024, represented himself as a business partner of distinguished Harvard professor Silas Bradley in 3 separate investment proposals, soliciting over $400,000 total. Attached, business documents showing forged connection to me, affidavits from potential investors, my sworn statement that I had never authorized the use of my name. Connecticut General Statutes violations, identity theft, forgery, criminal impersonation. Potential penalties, up to 5 years in state prison and $10,000 in fines. Julian met with an assistant attorney general personally, walking through the evidence methodically. Professor Bradley is fully prepared to testify, the AG asked. Absolutely. Harvard emeritus faculty, Met Museum board veteran, published scholar unimpeachable credibility. This is serious, calculated fraud. We will open a formal investigation immediately. Julian texted me, leaving the AG's office. Complaint filed. They are taking it extremely seriously. Marcus may face criminal charges. I responded, good. February 20th. Agnes Whitmore hosted her annual charity event. 50 women from Greenwich's elite gathered at the library meeting room. Combined household wealth over $500 million. Married to CEOs and senior partners and physicians. The event was ostensibly about supporting the town's elderly community. Everyone knew the real, underlying agenda. Agnes stood mid-program, giving her carefully prepared presentation. She had prepared PowerPoint slides professional, not gossipy. Elder financial abuse is a massive, growing crisis. Sometimes it's strangers, but far too often, it is sadly family. I want to share a local, disturbing example. She described the entire Christmas dinner incident without names initially. Then, then this happened to Professor Silas Bradley. His own daughter, Diana Hayes, publicly humiliated him, demanded he sign over his home. When he declined, she threw wine in his face. His son-in-law, Marcus Hayes, had been fraudulently using Silas's name in business schemes. The room erupted. Gasps, horrified head-shaking, outraged comments. That's utterly disgraceful. Someone should report this. Agnes, fully satisfied. Oh, it's been reported, ladies. The Attorney General is investigating the fraud. The social verdict was final. Women left, told their husbands immediately. By the next morning, Marcus Hayes and Diana Hayes were absolute persona non grata in Greenwich. Diana's last two remaining event clients canceled via email. We're going in a different direction. February 25th. Dawn came cold and sterile. I heard something on my front porch at 6 a.m. Not knocking, just a presence. I waited until 8 deliberately. Let the consequences breathe deeply. When I finally opened the door, Diana sat huddled on the cold stone steps, hunched, her coat inadequate for the temperature, her hair unwashed. She had lost maybe 15 pounds, aged visibly. Across the street, Agnes Whitmore's curtains moved slightly. Diana looked up, her eyes broken. Dad, I can't do this anymore. You were right about everything. Marcus manipulated me. I became someone I absolutely hate. I lost myself. I lost you. Please, just tell me there's a way back for me. I looked at her, saw the daughter she had been, the cruel stranger she had become, and the broken person she was now. I felt the familiar, brief pang of pain, quickly followed by absolute clarity. Diana, I said, my voice gentle but firm. Come inside. We need to talk about what happens next. I held the heavy door open. She stood shakily, entered the house the first time she had set foot in this house since the disastrous Christmas evening. We moved to the large, sunlit living room. I gestured toward the soft leather couch. Sit. I went to the kitchen, returned with 2 large mugs of freshly brewed coffee, hers with a delicate sprinkle of cinnamon, the precise way she had always liked it. A small, non-monetary gesture showing I still knew her, still deeply cared. I sat across from her in my leather armchair. Let me talk first, I said gently. What happened these past 2 months was not simply revenge, Diana. It was entirely consequences. You and Marcus made specific choices. I simply stopped protecting you from the inevitable results. Diana nodded slowly, crying quietly. But you are here now, I continued. That means something profound. So, I will tell you what happens next. But you need to hear some difficult truths first. About Marcus, about yourself, about everything that has transpired. Diana wiped her eyes slowly. I'm ready to hear it. All of it. We sat across from each other in my large living room. Coffee between us. Hers with cinnamon, the silent ritual of care. Diana looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, older somehow. 2 months had somehow aged her 5 years. Tell me what happened, I said. Start from the very beginning, Diana. She took a slow, deep breath. Marcus convinced me you were deliberately hiding millions, that all old people are selfish, that I had a right to my inheritance now, not later. He'd constantly say, your dad lives in a $5 million house, drives a luxury car, probably has secret accounts you don't know about. Why should you struggle while he hoards it all? I listened to him without interruption. I wanted to believe him, she admitted, her voice cracking, because it was far easier than admitting we had failed, that Marcus's businesses weren't working, that I wasn't generating enough clients. Believing you were the problem meant we weren't the problem. And the restaurant? Rehearsed, she confirmed, hanging her head. Marcus coached me for days. Said we needed to pressure you publicly. Force your hand. If you agreed, great. If you refused, make a massive scene. Show we were serious. The wine wasn't planned. That was just raw, genuine rage. I actually, truly believed what I was yelling at you. I stood, retrieved the documents from my desk, and spread them out on the antique coffee table between us. Look at these. Every single dollar I gave you over 15 years. Not just this year's transfers. Everything. Bank statements, $280,000 total. Wedding invoices, car title, apartment down payment. Then the Sotheby's receipt from 2009, $650,000. Handwritten note in the margin for Diana's education. Her face went utterly white. What painting was that, Dad? A Dutch landscape, early Renaissance school. I had owned it for 25 years. Sold it quietly to pay your Columbia Business School tuition. Never told you. Why not? I didn't want gratitude, Diana. I wanted you happy. I wanted you educated. That was truly enough for me. She started crying silent, heavy tears. I pulled out the detective report. Now read this. Marcus's hidden casino debt, $75,000. Diana had not known. She read aloud from his laptop files recovered by investigators, a document titled Exit Strategy. After house transfer, file for divorce. Connecticut equitable distribution. Take 50% value. $5 million house equals $2.5 million payout. Move to Boston. Start fresh. She looked up at me, shattered. He was going to divorce me after he got what he wanted. You were a tool, Diana, not a partner. She put her head in her hands, shoulders shaking violently. I let her cry, then spoke firmly, not unkindly. Diana, I am giving you a profound choice. Divorce Marcus, start completely over. I will help you rebuild. Not money, but guidance, connections, support. Or stay with him and sink together. My will doesn't change either way. You choose who you want to be now. She wiped her eyes, her face resolute. I choose myself. 5 days later, Diana filed for dissolution of marriage at the Norwalk courthouse. Filled out the forms herself. No attorney, she couldn't afford one. Checked boxes, irretrievable breakdown, no children, marital debt substantially exceeds assets. Marcus was served the papers on March 3rd. His text messages to Diana. You're betraying me after everything I did for you. She immediately blocked his number. She moved into a $1,200 studio apartment in Norwalk. One room, a small kitchenette, everything she owned fit into her small car. She called me that evening. I filed. It's done. That took immense courage, Diana. It took hitting absolute bottom. Her voice was steady now. Now I can finally start climbing back up. March 8th, Saturday afternoon. I was in my study when I heard violent pounding on my front door. Marcus's voice, shouting uncontrollably. This is your fault. You destroyed my life. You owe me that house. I picked up my phone, dialed 911, staying utterly calm. There's a man on my property making violent threats. I feel unsafe. Dispatcher, stay on the line, sir. Officers are on the way. I went to my upstairs window. Neighbors were emerging from their houses, watching the spectacle. Marcus pounded on the door, face crimson, completely unhinged. This should be my property, he yelled. He promised us. Greenwich police arrived in 8 minutes. 2 officers approached him. Sir, you need to leave this private property now. Marcus turned on them. He owes me, his daughter and I. We deserve that house. Sir, final warning. Leave, or you're under arrest. Marcus tried pushing past them toward my door. They grabbed his arms. Handcuffs clicked shut. Criminal trespassing. Disorderly conduct. Resisting arrest. He spent the night in the Stanford Police Department holding cell. Released on a $7,000 bond borrowed from his sympathetic sister. By Monday, the Greenwich Time ran the story. Local man arrested at professor's home. Marcus's humiliation was now public, permanent record. March 15th, Stanford Superior Court. 10 a.m. Marcus stood before the judge with his overworked, court-appointed public defender. The Connecticut Assistant Attorney General presented the charges. Criminal impersonation, using a distinguished Harvard professor's name without authorization to solicit over $400,000 in fraudulent investments. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus's choice, an expensive, high-risk trial, likely leading to a conviction and a maximum 5 years in prison, or a plea deal. Plea deal. Plead guilty to 1 count of criminal impersonation. $25,000 fine. 2 years probation. $50,000 in restitution. Permanent criminal record. The judge spoke directly to Marcus. Do you understand you are admitting guilt to this crime? Marcus's voice was barely audible. Yes. You used a distinguished professor's name your own father-in-law to steal from people. Did you do this? Yes. The judge lectured him sternly on elder exploitation and family betrayal, then formally accepted the plea. The gavel fell. Marcus Hayes was now a convicted criminal. Julian texted me from the gallery. It's done, Silas. He's finished. I read the message in my study. Closed the phone. Justice was served. Late March. Diana needed to collect her last belongings from the Stanford apartment. She arranged to come when Marcus wasn't there, but he showed up anyway. They hadn't seen each other since she had filed for divorce. Marcus looked terrible unwashed, defeated, hollow-eyed. We could have had everything, he whispered. Your father's millions, the house. But you gave up on me. Diana faced him directly, unflinching. No, Marcus. You gave up on honesty, integrity, decency. You used me, you used him, and you utterly destroyed yourself. I loved you. Diana's voice was sad but firm. No, you love what you thought I could get you. There's a very profound difference. She picked up her boxes and left. She never saw him again. Marcus moved to Hartford, found work in retail. A truly broken man at 42. Diana moved forward. April 12th, 10 a.m. Diana arrived on time. Growth. She used to be chronically late. She carried a leather notebook, not flowers, not trying to buy her way back. I made coffee cinnamon in hers. We sat in the living room. My therapist said real amends have 3 parts, Diana began, opening the notebook. Acknowledging what I did, understanding exactly how it hurt you, and showing you how I have fundamentally changed. Her voice broke as she read. I called you a pathetic egoist in front of people who respect you. I threw wine in your face, publicly humiliating you. I demanded your house, your home, like I had a fundamental right to it. I believed lies about you instead of asking directly. I let Marcus manipulate me because it was easier than facing my own failures. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. I made you, my father who secretly sold a painting worth $650,000 to pay for my education, feel like you weren't doing enough. Dad, I hurt you. I disrespected you. And I am truly sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry I did it. I can't undo it. I can only promise I am different now. Working on it every single day. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what I did. I was silent for a moment, then spoke carefully. Diana, I appreciate your honesty. I see you are trying, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It certainly doesn't mean things go back to how they were. You broke trust. Trust rebuilds slowly through consistent action, not just words. She nodded, crying openly. So, here's what I offer. We rebuild our relationship slowly. You keep working, paying your debts, going to therapy. I will be your father, guidance, support, time together. But my will stays precisely as written. Not as a punishment, but as a necessary clarity. You don't need an inheritance, Diana. You need to build your own life, your own achievements. Can you fully accept that? Yes, she said, her voice fierce. Absolutely. Yes. I don't want your money, Dad. I want my father back. I smiled. The first genuine smile between us in months. Then let's have breakfast. I'll make French toast, Diana. Just like when you were little. Mid-June, I worked with Julian to formally establish the Bradley Foundation for Art History and Law students. The first contribution, $600,000 from selling another Dutch painting I owned. Ironically, similar to the one I had sold for Diana's education. The foundation's mission, scholarships for talented but financially disadvantaged students pursuing art history and public law. The selection committee included Eleanor Vance and 2 esteemed Harvard Law faculty members. July brought the first scholarship award ceremony at the Greenwich Library. I presented $30,000 to a young woman from a modest background. She reminded me sharply of young Diana before everything went wrong. Diana attended, sitting quietly in the back, watching me being honored by the community. Later, she said, "That could have been our legacy together, Dad. I'm sorry I almost ruined it." "It is our legacy, Diana," I told her. "It just took a different, more painful path." Sometimes, the better paths only appear after walking through difficult terrain. August Saturday. Diana and I drove to Manhattan. A monthly tradition we had successfully rebuilt since May, visiting the Metropolitan Museum, just like when she was young. We stood in the Dutch master's wing. I explained the paintings, the history, the technique, the cultural context. Diana listened attentively, asked intelligent questions. She had been studying the subject between visits. Before a specific landscape by a minor Dutch master, I paused. This reminds me of the painting I sold in 2009. Same artist, similar period. The one for my tuition? Her voice was tight. Yes. Do you regret selling it, Dad? I looked at her carefully. I regretted that you never knew about it, that I hid the sacrifice. Not the sacrifice itself, the secrecy. It made you think support came easily, that I had unlimited resources. That was my mistake. I wish I had told you. I wish I'd known. I would have appreciated it then. Would you? At age 19? I don't honestly think so. But now, at 38, having lost everything and rebuilt it yourself from the ground up now, you understand the true value of sacrifice. That, Diana, is worth far more than any painting. We stood together looking at the art, finally understanding each other completely. That evening, I sat in my study, the peaceful light fading through the windows. I looked at my bookshelves, the authored books, the art history volumes, the 34 years of scholarship. My rare coin collection, $3.1 million, secretly preserved. Foundation documents on my desk, the official seal. All unchanged. Money to the foundation, not the family. My phone rang. Diana. Dad, there's a special exhibition at the Met next week. Vermeer and his contemporaries. Want to come? Maybe dinner afterward. I smiled. I'd love to, Diana. Tuesday work. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 2. Love you, Dad. Love you too, Emma. I poured a small measure of Macallan 50-year. Not for victory now, but for deep, hard-earned peace. I looked at a framed photograph on my desk. Diana at age 8 at the museum, standing before a massive painting, looking up at it with genuine wonder. That girl was finally back, in some new, stronger form. My phone buzzed. Text from Julian. Foundation paperwork finalized. First scholarship disbursed. Well done, Silas. Another text from Eleanor. Lovely seeing you and Diana together at the ceremony. She's definitely changed. You did the right thing, dear friend. I closed my phone, leaned back, completely satisfied. Not merely happy. Satisfaction is different, deeper, more profound. I had protected what truly mattered. My dignity, my values, and ultimately my daughter's soul. The will stayed absolutely unchanged, but the relationship was restored. A better foundation than any inheritance could ever have provided. Looking back on that Christmas dinner, the wine dripping down my face, Diana's hateful words, Marcus's smug calculation, I saw it differently now. Not as an attack, but as a painfully delivered gift. It forced me to act. Forced Diana to finally face herself. Forced Marcus to publicly reveal his contemptible character. If they had simply gotten away with it, Diana would be trapped in that toxic marriage, still blind to her own greed, still thinking she deserved what she had not earned. Marcus would have eventually destroyed her completely. Instead, she was free, building a real life, learning real, difficult values. And I was here to guide her, not as an ATM, but as a father. That was worth more than any $18 million inheritance. Justice doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it always feels right. And right is profoundly enough. Outside, Greenwich settled into the tranquil evening. My house was secure, my life my own. I raised the Scotch glass in a private toast. To consequences, to transformation, to second chances earned through honest, painful work. The golden light faded completely. I sat in quiet contentment. The story was finished. The lesson profoundly learned. And tomorrow, life continued, better than before, built on absolute truth. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.